Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss how Dominic Raab is an idiot. More specifically, how he has dropped Boris Johnson right in it again over the newly leaked story of another lockdown party. This time from the first lockdown in 2020. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, it's happened again. It's happened again. The Guardian have just run the story that Boris Johnson, his now wife, Carrie Symonds, but not at the time, and a load of Downing Street staff had both an indoor and an outdoor party, but specifically we'll focus on the garden party of cheese and wine and stuff. And this was in May 2020, during the lockdown, when such gatherings were banned for everyone else. It was also, as others have pointed out, only shortly after Boris Johnson left hospital after he nearly died from COVID. Like, even when he nearly paid the ultimate price for his hubris with the pandemic, Johnson learned nothing, allowed people to mix freely around his latest family. The Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, at the time, was very clear that you could meet one person from outside your household outdoors for a meeting. Naturally, Boris Johnson claimed that he was following all the rules. Have we heard that before? This was a work meeting, he said. Unfortunately, there are a few small holes in this assertion. See, we've got a photograph. It's none of this he said, she said stuff. In fact, apparently this took place both indoors and outdoors, but the photograph is from the outdoors bit. Actual photograph. In the photograph, we can see Carrie Symonds, the Prime Minister's then fiancée, now wife. Now, she has no role working at Downing Street. She's not a member of staff. Her presence alone makes it very difficult to call it a work meeting, a social gathering. In fact, why should she be privy to any work meeting at the heart of government? The second point to make is there's not a clipboard or a notebook in sight. Booze? Yes. So the idea that if anyone said anything intelligent, that everyone else would remember it seems a bit nonsense, because you're knocking back the odd glass of wine there. No laptop bags, no flip charts, no nothing. People are also spread out. How is it a meeting when people are divided into at least 5 distinct groups? Not even with the most charitable eyes could you see that as a meeting. Even an informal one with the odd glass of wine. You know, seriously, I don't know how blinkered you have to be at this point, after everything else, to look at this latest story of the Prime Minister breaking his own lockdown rules, for which ordinary members of the public were made to comply with or face fines. How do you look at this and go, yeah, this is obviously fine? Clearly a high-level work meeting. But let's say you were of such thinking. Another small flaw in the plan. See, while Boris Johnson was insisting that it was a work meeting, and the BBC was quoting it all without contradiction, including the bit that says it's fine for Carrie Symonds to be there because she lives at number 10. Actually, there's 2 things about that. First of all, she doesn't live at number 10. I know we refer to the home of the Prime Minister being number 10 Downing Street, but since Tony Blair, Prime Ministers have actually lived at number 11. You know, this was because the Chancellor lives at number 11, technically. The Chancellor's flat is much larger than the Prime Minister's flat. Tony Blair had a big family. Gordon Brown didn't. They arranged a swap. And it sort of stayed like that. You know, Boris Johnson lives at number 11. Carrie Symonds lives at number 11 Downing Street. So, you know, this is the case for Johnson Symonds. As I say, she doesn't live at 10 Downing Street. So that's a lie. The second thing is that number 10 Downing Street is also a place of work. Like, it's a bit like living above the chip shop. You're not allowed to go down and help yourself just because technically you live in the same building. You know, Johnson doesn't own the place. He lives in the flat of number 11 Downing Street. That's his living space in Downing Street. Every other part of the building is a government workplace. But what chance they had in blagging their way through another party scandal, and there'll be people for whom the blag works because they don't really know the inner workings of Downing Street. It was all mucked up when nobody thought to stop Dominic Raab going on the telly to do an interview. The Justice Secretary was asked about this latest example of one rule for them, and he dutifully said, this wasn't a social occasion, it was staff having a drink after meetings. After meetings. So it wasn't a meeting itself then. It was after meetings. That's what he's just said. Because here's the thing. Having a drink is not what changes it from a meeting to a party. I'm happy with that. It's not usual for most of us. Although I've been in meetings where there's been the odd drink. But generally there aren't. But there are people who do have a drink at meetings, and that is usual. You know, I've seen the likes of Yes Minister, where Hacker would have a glass of scotch in a meeting with someone. We've seen plenty of real-life examples of politicians of all parties having a drink at a meeting. It's understood that some people do drink at meetings. Fine. I can get that's the thing. That's fine. You know, it's not the glass of wine I'm pointing to in the photo that proves it's not a meeting. You can have a meeting over dinner even. It can still be a meeting. It's not the presence of either food or drink that in itself stops it being a meeting. What stops it being a meeting is that people present are so spread out that they cannot possibly hear each other. You show someone that photo without any context, you ask them to say, what's going on there? Social event. No one would say that that's a meeting. No one. You know, you've got someone there who's not a member of staff present. Not a single soul is writing anything down or even has the capacity to. Even if you got to a lull, well, all you're doing is listening to someone and you're not writing anything down. There's nothing to write it on. You know, and the Deputy Prime Minister has just said on breakfast television that the gathering was after meetings, not during them. Raab also tried to pull the having a drink after a gruelling session thing, as if Downing Street staff are the only people who work hard in this country. Harder than anyone else. Frankly, it's starting to look like that everyone in the world works harder than they do. It's starting to look to me like Downing Street staff were having one long party that began at the start of 2020 and is still going on now. But that's not the end of it. Even if you were still willing to swallow all that tripe, there was something else. Because before the photograph was published, Downing Street was specifically asked about this event. Last May the 15th, last year. Were you having this thing, they said, including like wine, pizza and spirits, both inside and outside the building. Did this happen? No, it was denied. So it's gone like this. Were staff drinking in the garden on May 15th, 2020? No. Here's a photo. Yeah, but it was fine because it was a work meeting. If it was all above board, why deny that the event took place before you knew that photographic evidence was available? Why not just say, yeah, there have been times when we've done that, but it's been purely in the context of a work meeting. It's not what they said. And even if you were prepared to somehow accept that this was a meeting, that their ears were all so keen that they could hear someone from the other end of the garden with their back turned to them, and that despite getting pissed, everyone would remember all the key points made, there was no need to write anything down. Or if you imagine this was the end of the meeting and everyone put away their notebooks or something, even then the rules would still have banned this gathering as a work meeting, because even if you think it was a work meeting, it was still banned. Work meetings of that kind were still banned. It wasn't a case of you can't meet socially, but you can meet for work. That's what the government now are trying to try and convince you of that. That wasn't what the rules said. The rules stated you should not have an in-person meeting, even for work, unless it was strictly necessary. They could have been at home, video conferencing. What was the need for this particular in-person meeting? Even if it was a meeting, which it wasn't, even if it was, what was the reason for it being in person? What were they doing other than talking? Because for talking, you can have meetings remotely. In person means that then you must need to do something or use something that cannot be done remotely. What? What was there that was permitted under those rules? What can we see in that photo that says, you couldn't have done that remotely? Nothing. It's all nonsense. It's another in a long line of socialising events that the Prime Minister and his staff clearly, regularly engaged in. It's no longer even just about Christmas parties now. This has been going on all year. It's probably been going on all this year as well. That was not permitted within the rules, even if you think it was a work meeting. It still wasn't permitted. You know, rules that they wrote and compelled the rest of us to follow. But there we are. That's the latest. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.